For much of my adult life, I believed that American institutions, imperfect as they were, could be reformed from within. That belief was shaped not just by theory, but by personal experience. I benefited from programs that offered mentorship, research opportunities, and access to fields I once saw as out of reach. These weren't abstract ideals, they worked, until they didn't. I've watched these kinds of programs disappear quietly, with a shift in funding priorities or silence from leadership. The lesson has become clear. Even effective efforts are expendable when they challenge dominant narratives about who belongs and what deserves investment. This erosion mirrored my experience in the workplace. I left a private sector job for what I believed was a more meaningful public interest role. But that move, which once felt like a step toward purpose, revealed its own contradictions. Behind progressive branding and language, I encountered professional spaces where performativity often replaced clarity, where critique was unwelcome, and where actual impact was subordinated to appearance and marketing. At some point, it became harder to view this as dysfunction. It looked more like design. The systems aren't failing accidentally, they're operating as intended. That realization didn't lead me to apathy. It led to a shift. I stopped waiting for institutions to evolve and started reallocating my energy. I spent time with local, community-based work that doesn't need bureaucratic endorsement to be real. I've returned to music and writing not to monetize them, but because they help me process what the world is becoming. I've leaned more into care and understanding. I have a new marriage, aging cats, a home to be maintained, time that doesn't have to be optimized. I don't position any of this as a final answer. There's no illusion that local action or personal realignment will compensate for systemic collapse. There is something deeply disorienting about realizing mission-driven institutions may offer less space for honest work than firms openly structured around capital. There's clarity in acknowledging that the paths and ideologies once offered as routes to change may now serve to stabilize what needs to be dismantled. My life isn't about moral purity. I'm returning to my old job in the private sector, not because I think it's better per se, but because it makes fewer promises that it won't keep. There's something freeing about not having to pretend a structure is more ethical than it is. Left and right, public and private, reformist and radical, all of it collapses under the weight of institutional self-preservation. Eventually, belief gives way to adaptation. If these systems are unraveling, then let them. The collapse is not a failure, it's overdue. What comes next isn't certain, but pretending the